John Julius Jacobson Jr., better known as Skylar Deleon, was born on August 12, 1979, in the city of Los Angeles, California. His parents, John Julius Jacobson and Lynette Daniel, were addicts. His father was also a drug dealer and was arrested numerous times. It is said that his house was always full of people who were also users, and some occasions used the place to practice orgies, in which Skylar's parents also participated. John Julius was extremely violent with Skylar. It was common for the boy to be beaten by him with wooden spoons until they broke, and according to sources, these beatings started when he was still just a baby. His mother, on the other hand, was extremely conniving with the whole situation. She didn't attack her son, but also did not intervene when John beat him. There are claims that Skylar was also abused by his father, but this has never been actually proven, despite multiple sources claiming that it was. Later, when Skylar was around 9 years old, his mother decided that she didn't want this life anymore. She wanted to stop being an addict and be able to start over, so she decided to leave, but instead of taking her son with her, she preferred to leave him with his violent father. Shortly after, Skylar's father found another companion with whom he had more children, and despite his father having a new wife and having a new family, he did not change at all in the way he treated Skylar and beat the boy whenever he wanted. In 1994, at the age of 14, he participated in the famous series Power Rangers, which ended up opening many doors for him in the film industry. He came to make several advertising campaigns and commercials for TV, and his goal was to pursue a career in this medium. However, he did not adapt more complex roles, having difficulty interpreting and memorizing larger lines, and ended up giving up to his acting career. At age 20, he joined the United States Marine Corps but was discharged for desertion shortly afterwards. In order to survive, he started to work odd jobs and had difficulties to stop at just one. In debt and in need of money, he decided to commit an armed robbery, but was caught by the police and sentenced to 1 year in prison. In prison, he met a man named John Jarvie. The same man would play an important role in his future, but not in a positive way. Shortly after being released from prison, Scarlett met Jennifer Henderson on a dating site, and after a few exchanges of messages, they decided to meet. Immediately, the two began a relationship and then got married and moved in together. Later, Jennifer became pregnant with the couple's first child, and after some time they had a second one. The couple, despite appearing to be happy with each other and with the family they were forming, were not at all happy with their financial situation. The two lived in the garage of Jennifer's father's house and were also having financial problems as Skylar did not stop at any job. They wanted to move to a bigger and better place, but how could they do that if they didn't have the money? In November 2004, while looking at the newspaper, he saw classifies a yacht that was for sale for $440,000. He showed Jennifer that he was delighted with the yacht and told her he would buy it. She asked how, since they didn't have that money. He then said he would fix it. The yacht belonged to the couple of Thomas and Jackie Hawks, who used it as their home and made several trips around the world with it. They intended to sell it as they wanted to move from the state of California to Arizona to be closer to their grandson, who had just been born. Thomas was a retired probation officer and bodybuilder who loved sports at the sea. Jackie was a homemaker and second wife to Thomas, who helped him raise his two children from a very young age. The two saved money for several years to buy the yacht and fulfill the dreams of traveling around the world on it. It is said that they were a very fun and passionate couple, and everyone who knew them liked them. Skylar contacted Thomas and said he would like to see the yacht. They then arranged to meet at the harbor. At first, Thomas was suspicious of Skylar. He was usually suspicious of people he didn't know, since he was a parole officer and came to deal with many criminals and knew what people were capable of. However, he ended up letting his guard down as soon as he saw Skylar with his wife, who was pregnant with the couple's second child. Skylar told Thomas and Jackie that he was very interested in the yacht and would buy it with some money that he had earned as a child actor. Of course, this was all just a big lie, but Skylar convinced the couple with this conversation, saying that he still had contacts in Hollywood and that she was a personal friend with some celebrities. Trust gained, Skylar and Jennifer were invited by Thomas and Jackie to take a tour of their yacht the other day. Skylar then asked the couple if he could take two friends on the yacht tour. As they believed he was a good person and would actually close the deal, they agreed. On the morning of November 15, 2004, Skylar met Thomas and Jackie at the harbor. He was with his two friends, Alonzo McCain and John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who he claimed was their accountant. After a brief conversation, they all boarded the yacht and set sail from the harbor. It was the last time Thomas and Jackie were seen. When the yacht was already on high seas, Skylar and his two friends surrendered the couple with toy guns and then forced Thomas to sign the yacht's transfer documents in his name. Thomas did everything they told and asked several times not to hurt his wife, but this time their pleas, the three criminals tied the couple to the yacht's anchor and sank them into the sea. Afterwards, Skylar and his two accomplices went to Mexico as part of the plan to keep themselves safe. The days passed and the family of Thomas and Jackie found it strange that they didn't give any news, because even though the couple used to travel all the time, they always called and informed the family where they were. On November 27, 2004, 12 days after the crime, Thomas' brother, James Hawks, who was a former chief of police, went to the couple's yacht to see how they were doing, as he hadn't heard from the two for a while. Arriving at the port, he saw the yacht that was all locked up. Skylar and his accomplices had already returned from Mexico the night before with it, and left it in the port. James then started asking the other owners of neighboring boats if they had seen this brother and sister-in-law, and some of them said the two were last seen on the 15th. He quickly knew something was wrong, and so he decided to go to the police to report the couple's disappearance. The police officers went to the yacht and managed to enter the vessel, where they searched the entire place in search of any trace of Thomas and Jackie Hawks. They didn't find anything that could help them with that, but they found something very strange. There was a purchase receipt dated November 17. His purchased items were bleach and large garbage bags, and the name registered as the purchaser on the receipt was from a person belonging to Skylar Deleon's family. On November 29, 2004, 14 days after the crime, the police went to Skylar, asked about the receipt and if he knew the whereabouts of the couple. He only said that he had bought the yacht and that he even had documents to prove it and witnesses, who in this case were his accomplices. The police found this story very strange and began to ask more questions, until at one point, Skylar, out of nervousness, ended up contradicting himself and finally said that he had bought the boat with the aim of laundering money from the traffic. Skylar was eventually arrested, as he himself confessed that he was involved with trafficking and money laundering, and in all these depositions, and continued to deny that he had any involvement with the disappearance of Thomas and Jackie Hawks. A few months passed and the police still had no clue where the couple Thomas and Jackie were, until Alonzo McCain, one of Skylar's accomplices who was still in Mexico, decided to return to California and try a whistleblower agreement with the authorities. He told the police everything, detail by detail, and who everyone was involved in the crime. The police quickly arrested Jennifer Henderson and John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Skylar's wife and accomplice. According to the police, Alonzo McCain was a boy of limited IQ and an easily manipulated person. According to the police, Skylar would have filled the head of the boy, who was 19 years old at the time, with lies about him being a professional killer who made a lot of money and only killed bad people, and that if he helped him on some missions, he would pay $1 million for him. Alonzo McCain, in his statement to the police, said that Skylar had promised the couple that if they cooperated, he would put them in a boat and then release them into the sea to return to land, and of course, as we already know, that's not what happened. Alonzo also said that when the couple realized that Skylar would not fulfill his promise, Jackie Hawks began to cry a lot, and all the time said that she had a grandson and that she did not want to die without at least seeing him for the last time. Realizing that the criminals weren't bothering about it, she signed all the papers they asked for the wrong way, in case she didn't put the S at the end of her Hawks last name, and ended up being Hawk, and that made things difficult for them when tried to move the couple's assets. Thomas Hawks, in an act of courage, in an attempt to save his wife and save himself, managed to get up while he was surrendered and threw a backward kick, even blindfolded and with his hands tied behind his back. The kick hit Skylar in the groin, who fell to the ground, but shortly thereafter, Thomas was knocked out by John Fitzgerald, who was standing next to him. John Fitzgerald was a tall, burly man, a member of the Insane Crips gang and with an extensive criminal record. He was introduced to Skylar by Myro Sandora Gardner, a former member of the Insane Crips who refused to participate in Skylar's criminal plan when called upon by Skylar, but introduced John Fitzgerald, saying he could help. Skylar was afraid of not being able to surrender Thomas Hawks with just the help of Alonzo McCain, and Thomas was a very strong man, and so he decided he would need a third person, and that's how he got John Fitzgerald. Alonzo McCain said that after Thomas was knocked out, he was unconscious for a while, and that when he woke up, they took him and his wife and tied him to the yacht's anchor. The couple had tapes over their mouth and blindfolded. According to Alonzo, they managed to intertwine their hands so they could die hand in hand. They were pushed overboard by John Fitzgerald, and they dropped the anchor, and quickly, Thomas and Jackie Hawk sank. Through various information that Alonzo McCain passed to the police, they also discovered that Skylar was responsible for a murder that took place in Mexico in 2003, whose victim was John Jarvie, the same man he had met in prison. According to authorities, Skylar gave him a $50,000 scam and then got rid of him, and all this happened when Skylar was still in semi-open prison regime. At the time, he went out of prison in Mexico, committed a crime, and then returned to prison as if nothing had happened. With all the evidence and information, the police managed to complete the investigation, and 5 people were indicted for the crime, namely Skylar Deleon, Jennifer Henderson, Alonzo McCain, John Fitzgerald, and Miro Sandora Gardner. Jennifer Henderson was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder in October 2007. She was sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. She also divorced Skylar. Today, she's serving her sentence at the Central Women's Prison located in Chowchilla, California. Alonzo McCain, after testifying against Skylar, Jennifer, and John, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of voluntary manslaughter, kidnapping, and robbery. On June 15, 2009, he was sentenced to 20 years and 4 months in prison and will be able to apply for parole in 2023. Today, he's serving his time at Valley State Prison in Chowchilla, California. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. On May 1, 2009, he was sentenced to death and is currently awaiting his execution at San Quentin State Prison in California. Miro Gardner pleaded guilty to indirect accomplice after spending 4 years in prison, and in March 2009, all charges against him in connection with the crime against Thomas and Jackie Hawks were dropped and he was released. Skylar Deleon was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 for the death of Thomas and Jackie, and 1 for the death of John Jarvie in Mexico. On April 10, 2009, he was sentenced to death. Currently, he awaits his execution at San Quentin State Prison in California. Just before his trial, Skylar tried to hire another soon-to-be-released inmate to get rid of his father and cousin. According to Skylar himself, he wanted revenge on his abusive father, and his cousin was a witness to the murder of John Jarvie and knew too much. While in prison, Skylar partially cut off a part of his genital member, claiming he always wanted to be a woman. Defense lawyers even claimed that Skylar committed these crimes as he intended to raise money for a sex reassignment surgery. Currently, Skylar is in the process of changing, and he says he already identifies as a woman, and according to some sources, he didn't change his name because Skylar would be a neutral name and can be used by both men and women. Psychiatrists who evaluated him said his abusive and troubled childhood was the key defining point of his personality. Skylar is said to be a narcissist, sociopath who sees himself as the center of everything and has a great need to lie so that others will admire him. Despite several searches carried out at sea by the police for the bodies of the couple Thomas and Jackie Hawks, they were never found. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching me this far. Best wishes, and I see you next time.